Hello, and you're very welcome to the Women's Rugby Pod, episode 1478.7.
Oh.
Yep. It feels like a million, doesn't it? How dare you? How very dare you, Burf? Don't start a pod like that. We're supposed to bring joy and happiness to the world. I suppose we can forgive you slightly because you got an injury and you're hobbling around on crutches.
Well, I've got rid of the crutches yesterday, so that was good. Yeah, I picked up an injury on my calf. Nothing too serious. Just won't be around for a couple of weeks, but yeah, it's all good. Got a good plan in place, and it's all about what you make of it. Getting back on the road to recovery. But I suspect, and I say this gingerly, knowing that I'm in Hampshire and you're in Kent, it takes a little bit longer to come back from these things, doesn't it, at your age? You just love a cheap dig. You see an opportunity, take it.
If there is a chink.
Need a few more cod liver oils, a bit of collagen, and yeah, I'll be good to go.
Sorry to hear that, Burf, but you would have looked on with great joy of your team winning a real tight one at the weekend against Wasp. We will look at the two games from the Allianz Premier 15s, and I must say a huge apology to DMP, Durham Sharks, and to Sale Sharks. Yeah, for some reason we completely forgot about their fixture last weekend on the pod. So one of those things, huge apologies, not normally like us, but we'll have a look at those. We'll have a look at the fixtures this weekend. There was Madrid Sevens we'll have a look at. The European Championship, moving towards that European qualifier for the World Cup. But first, our journey around the world in this World Cup year continues. We're going to hear all about rugby in Australia, but not only that, rugby in Fiji as well. Alana Thomas, who is the coach of the Melbourne Rebels in Australia, but she's also the assistant coach of Fiji. She's taken that role that World Rugby have set up, getting women into that elite environment in the international scene, leading into the World Cup. Here is Alana Thomas. It gives us great pleasure this morning on the WRP to welcome Alana Thomas, who is involved in the Melbourne Rebels and is also just taking position with Fiji with the World Rugby Initiative, getting women into the international environment leading up to the World Cup. A big good evening to you, Alana. How's things? Everything tickety-boo?
Yeah, everything's going well down here in Australia. Just about to get back into some rugby. It's a very condensed calendar, so but looking forward to it. 2021 is going to be a fantastic year for women's rugby, not just in Australia but globally.
No, absolutely. I must just ask everyone at the moment. Everybody's safe and well with the weird and wonderful situation the world finds itself in. You guys are not too bad down there, are you?
No, we've been pretty good. We just had a snap 5-day lockdown about a week or so ago, so we've just come out of that. But yeah, we're all good, and it looks like come Friday we'll have some more restrictions, so hopefully I'll be able to get back into the office after 12 months working from home.
Wow. Yeah, funny old time, isn't it? Speaking of funny, we promised last week that Burf would conduct this entire interview in an accent, so here we go. Hi, morning, Burf.
I think can you hear me? Okay.
Don't pull that old one, mate.
G'day, mate. How are ya?
That's not bad after last week's effort, I think. I think that's pretty good.
I took the feedback. I've adapted.
Wasn't great, was it? Let's be honest. Wasn't great. Tell us about your club role for now in Melbourne. Can't say Melbourne, can you?
No, don't say Melbourne.
I used to work with a lady, and yeah, she literally would punch you if you called it Melbourne. So of course we did. But yeah, Melbourne. How's everything in Melbourne?
Yeah, everything's really good here. Super W, we're just about to get the ball rolling there. We usually would have played and be finished Super W normally. We usually played over the summer here. But I'm obviously with the condensed calendar, Olympics being moved back, the Super W has been pushed back mid-year to lead in well for the Wallaroos into World Cup. So we're just about to start looking and getting our squad together. we actually have had no rugby since last year's Super W. So our last game of women's rugby here in Melbourne was the Super W girls playing in Perth, getting our first win on the 8th of March 2020, and there's been no rugby played since then. So we've sort of had a year off and got a bit of work to do to get the girls back in, get fit, and get back on the training paddock. So a bit of work to be done, but yeah, hopefully come the end of March, we'll have our girls back on the park and starting to get building and preparations for the 2021 season.
It's great to hear that it's going to be back up and running. Can you just, for our viewers, just give us an insight to what the league is about, how it formats, how many teams, that kind of thing?
So the Super W is basically the men's Super Rugby here in Australia. We have all the franchises. So we've got the Queensland Reds, New South Wales Waratahs, the ACT Brumbies, and the Western Force, as well as the Rebels. So we've got 5 teams, and we play a competition over 5 weeks, playing each other. And when we were playing earlier in the year, we used to follow the men and try and have double headers with the men. So it's our high performance elite program. I'd probably say similar to the Allianz Premier 15s, where the main clubs all have teams, and it's that championship that you're trying to win. And we play each other once, home and away series, and then have finals, so playoffs. Team that wins the comp goes straight through to final, 2 and 3 playoff for the right to go to the final. So pretty small comp over 5-6 weeks, but really intense. Something that in the past, we used to have 10 days where we'd play our nationals with all the states and army and things like that. So it's actually a full high performance program with the players embedded in the franchises. So you get exposure to the coaches, you get to be able to work and train with the men's team or in and around where the men's teams are training. So it's a good environment to bring the men and the women together.
In terms of leading up to Super W, what was the structure underneath the chimney, the pyramid that goes into that? Because I presume after Super W, the next step is obviously international rugby. What's below that for those that don't know? That's me. I don't know.
You don't know, okay. We've just basically under Super W, we've got all our club rugby. So all our states will just have our normal club rugby teams or community rugby programs that the players come out of. So we've got the community rugby 15s, and then we've got the Aon 7s and our 7s competitions that sort of sit off in that 7 sort of hierarchy. But it pretty much goes club rugby into Super W into Wallaroos. So it's a pretty narrow structure, but again, across the different states, Queensland, New South Wales are quite strong. They've got some good depth, got teams that have got two teams, 2 divisions in New South Wales and Queensland. ACT, Melbourne have just got the 1 division, same with WA. So pretty much a big step from club rugby into that high performance sort of Super W, but also a great experience to bring players through. We get squads of up to 30, 35. So you can bring in some of your young girls, and that's definitely been a strategy that for the last 3 years at the Rebels, we've been bringing a lot of our under 18 girls through into the Super W. And in the last season was when we started to see them really perform after having a couple of years of experience.
That exposure early on is so important, isn't it? Just being in that environment, they learn so much, and then when they get the opportunity, or when they're old enough, then it's almost a little bit of an accelerated process. They're quite familiar with a lot of stuff. They know the language, they know the environment, and then you can, and they're also, after being a part of it for a couple of years, they're really relaxed in that environment, and then you get the best out of people in that way, don't you?
Oh, definitely. And the thing that I'm seeing from the last sort of 3 or 4 years is those young girls coming through schools and pathways into those clubs is they're coming through with really good foundation skills. Whereas in the past, some of the girls hadn't had that sort of junior rugby. So they were coming in, you were spending a lot of time on those core skills. Whereas these young girls are coming through, they've got great core foundation, they've got good core skills, and we're able to just accelerate them. And just seeing them pick up things and just the enthusiasm that it just rubs off on the more experienced players, but it also keeps the more experienced players on their toes. And it also helps.
Yeah, the whippersnappers around. I know that feeling.
We're just by the very nature of these chats on the pod, we're going to dot all over the place. I'm just so keen to hear about you and Australia. all the rest of it. So excuse us jumping out. I wanted to know, here in the UK and across Europe, there are literally thousands of young ladies and girls flooding into the sport. We know that, don't we? It is and actually harnessing that and putting them in the right kind of structures and programs is a real sort of key battle that's going on at the moment. Is that the same in Australia? Are the same kind of numbers that we're seeing sort of around the rest of the world flooding into the game?
Definitely after the 2016 Olympics, when the Sevens girls won gold, a quarter of the growth in Australia was girls and women's rugby. It absolutely exploded. So we've seen a big uptake, and that's the biggest growth area in rugby in Australia, and particularly in Victoria, where I am, is that youth and girls sort of rugby space. Because it's now, down here in Australia, we've obviously got a lot of W leagues, which is, we've got our AFLW, which is down here in Melbourne, our Australian Football League. We've got our W League Soccer. We've got our WNBL, our Super Netball. All the women's sports, particularly the footballs and crickets, have just exploded in the last 5 years. So there's so much choice out there for girls. So the amount of girls that are trying rugby, coming through the sevens pathways, whether it's touch sevens into tackle sevens and into 15s, it's, as I said, 25% of our growth down here. It's just fantastic. And to have on that final day of the 2016 Olympics, having 4 radio stations here in Melbourne ringing up, wanting to talk rugby, front page of the Herald Sun, it just showed how important it is for us to have women's rugby visible and out there for the consumer and the general punter to want to watch.
Wow, it's going places. So it's finding its place in what is a incredibly competitive sporting market in Australia. Enough about the general. Let's get into the general. I've done there, seamless that. How do you two know each other?
Well, we met, I think, through Asia Rugby, wasn't it, Burf? That's probably the first time we've sort of laid eyes on each other.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'd definitely known of you and crossed paths, like LinkedIn, and surprisingly, there's a lot of women involved in rugby, whether it's coaching, administration. We all kind of know about each other or heard wing of each other. But surprisingly, this is where I was getting to, we actually haven't all really just connected one time like this before. So yeah, I think we've both known of each other and of what each other's doing. But yeah, I think literally last week was the first time we caught eyes, and I was late. For good reason. I couldn't help it, but yeah, that's the first time. But yeah, big admirer of the work that you're doing, and the exciting move with Fiji now. It's just, again, it's you as an individual going to that next level and working with an international side. I know that's difficult at the moment because you can't get over there. I mean, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so obviously taking on the assistant coach role with Fiji for the World Cup, obviously Fijiana's first 15s World Cup, pretty exciting. And the opportunity to be able to coach at an international level is something that has been sort of, I suppose, a goal of mine to chase, being a player now going into coaching and giving back. But to be able to coach the Fijians and to see the amount of talent they've just got raw talent. It's a rugby loving nation. They love their rugby. And to be able to go over there, although I haven't been able to get over there yet, I just can't wait, because they've just got the support that they've got through their high performance unit. They've set up a women's high performance unit back in, I think, October last year. They had 30 players going in. They're training morning and afternoon in that high performance environment. The girls are training we've got a fairly wide squad at the moment, are training probably twice a month in camp. So whether it's a 3 or 5 day camp. So it's a really exciting sort of time to be involved in rugby, and albeit still in Australia, doing it remotely, having to have Zoom meetings and watching huddle footage and trying to sort of get a gauge of the players we've got is challenging, but it's really, as I said, it's really exciting. So I can't wait to get over there and go with them on this journey, because it's just a fantastic thing. These players, first World Cup, they're going to be history makers, trailblazers for the future, that for these young girls and boys coming through to be able to look up to and say, hey, they were the first players to go to a World Cup and represent Fiji in that 2021 World Cup is going to be a pretty amazing feeling for the players.
Yeah, I mean, that sparked loads and loads of questions. I'll just ask you what about Fiji, if that's all right. Knowing what you know about Fiji, and it's the national sport by 1,000 miles, does that give you extra pressure? And did you therefore think, oh, geez, that's a hugely pressured job, actually?
No, not really. I think it's just a great opportunity because they're such a raw talent, and it's just about being able to take the best of their skills and being able to apply it at a world stage. And, we've got a pretty tough pool. We've got, England, France, South Africa. But I think history shows that when it comes to World Cups, it's how you play on the day, that you play the tournament and how you prepare. And if we can prepare these players to be playing to the best of their ability, play to their strengths, and then, look at the opposition and plan accordingly, anything can happen on the day. You just got to be able to put your best performance out when it's needed. Just like everyone, I think everyone will be under a bit of pressure because we haven't played much rugby in the lead up to the World Cup. So it's going to be interesting to see how everyone sort of goes through the pre-tournament games and also in the tournament. I think it's a very open opportunity for a lot of teams to come up and show their wares. And I think South Africa and Fiji particularly they're sleeping giants in the women's game. You see the appointment of Lynn Campbell to go into South Africa and start to build there. You'll start to see that coming through at this World Cup, but also with Fiji putting in their high performance unit for the women, I think you're going to start to see these nations start to really step up and start to make the bigger nations take notice.
I couldn't agree with you more, because I think there's two things about this. Never underestimate, a team that has absolutely nothing to lose. They can absolutely shock people at World Cups, and if they are anything like the Sevens girls, what they can produce as well. So really, really exciting time. But the other thing that you mentioned about how this World Cup's going to play out, I think this year more teams are on a fairer playing level field. Level playing field this year, just because of the situation that everybody's in. Not every team's had all the preparation they want to. You talk about, Fiji getting together for twice a month. That's the same as a lot of other teams. Whereas before, potentially teams like England, they would be getting together weekly, being in big camps together. So it does make it, I'm not saying, it's completely wide open, but I think, it does put everybody on a level playing field. A bit more of one.
Now with the Australian accent. Now do it with the accent.
Sorry?
Now do it with the Australian accent.
God, I can't even say in English, let alone in an accent.
It's too trouble ever.
I'm trying to
no, I don't disagree with you, Burf. I think it does wait to New Zealand, and I was thinking about asking you, Alana, whether you feel that it is slightly weighted to New Zealand, but because of that, you're an assistant coach for Fiji. You've not even been in contact with them at the moment, or are we just in that situation where we are where we are? It's a global pandemic. There are greater things at play here, and actually getting the tournament away is what's important.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like even here in Australia, like we're in the same country and we've had border closures, so the Wallaroos haven't been able to get together as much as they would like. So, I think being at home, New Zealand they've always been that powerhouse in the women's game. Being at home, it's a special opportunity for them, and they've just got together over the last week doing their training camps and getting in and getting together. So I think whilst they're at home and they'll be red hot favourites at home, I just think that it's just a great opportunity. As Burf said, it's a pretty level playing field with the lead in to the tournament.
All the right words, just not necessarily the right order. Alana, when you do get your hands on them, as it were, you obviously won't be allowed to because you won't have contact, but when you do get over to Fiji, to the island, what's going to be number one on your list? From what you've seen, the contact you've had already, obviously discussions with the other management.
I think that the key thing for me is to get to know the players, get to know them as people. That's a big part of my coaching, is get to know the players, get to know what makes them tick, and to then be able to bring the best out of them on the field. That's the most important thing. Understand them, see what their skills, their strengths are, what they want to work on, and then go from there and take the lead from sort of obviously in the video and talking to the other coaches. But obviously a major focus for me is the defence side of things. But again, I can add value there with kicking and stuff like that, being a former goal kicker and things like that. Like any way I can help, and the time that I have, I'll be investing it in as much as I can with those players.
Oh, it's a great opportunity, isn't it? When you're a Wallaroo, and we'll only just touch on it just briefly, if you may. Did you think that this would be your path? Because I think some players think, well, you know, I could be a coach, I'll give it a go. Or was it very much a direct goal? You know, when I finish playing, I've got the communication skills, because that's, you know, pretty much top of the list, isn't it? To be a coach. Was it always something in your head?
No, it wasn't actually. I hadn't really thought about coaching. It wasn't until sort of I ended my career, I got a couple of really bad concussions, and basically that was forced upon me. And I sort of thought, well, I want to stay involved because it's given me so many great opportunities. And being in Melbourne, I was like, how can I give back? And a natural fit for me felt like coaching, but it was never a goal. And it wasn't until I sort of finished playing, started just helping out as a senior player in the Melbourne club team that I was at. You were sort of like an on-field coach, helping those young ones, as we sort of talked about, coming through and giving them experience, guiding them around. And then when it eventually, you know, I couldn't play anymore, I went, well, coaching's where it's a natural fit for me. So I went into it that way. And then it wasn't until a coaching program with Rugby Australia came up for women to encourage more women to get into coaching that I actually went to a Wallaroos camp to do some development work as a coach. And I got back in that environment and I went, oh, that little flame that was there and that fire in my belly as a player just came back. And I said, I want to be here as a coach now. I just want to be back in this high performance environment, working at the highest level. So it just ignited from there in 2015. And I've just sort of taken every opportunity that's been afforded to me and tried to make the most of it, and also connect with some really good people in the coaching sphere and in programs to help me along my way.
Brilliant! Well, what a great story. So can I ask one more question? Have you got time?
Of course, I've got as long as you want.
Oh, fine. Oh, well, all day.
Don't tell him that.
Where were you born?
No, Johnny. Right, one more question.
And your first school was? No, in all seriousness, my final question was, looking at women's rugby in Australia, and of course you're in there, and obviously your answer might be a little bit more guarded because you're within that system, but three things that Australian rugby has to do to continue the rapid growth of women's rugby in the country.
Oh, as I said, how long have you got?
Big final question.
It is a big final question. Let's finish with a crescendo.
I think for me, you have to have the high performance. You have to have that Wallaroos and the Aussie Sevens there, that players can be aspirational. They have to want to be able to have something to chase. So it comes back to if you can see it, you can be it. It has to be visible on TV, free to air, and accessible to the general public, to the community. So I think that's the first piece, is having those national teams. Then you have to build your pathway from there, and it's not just a playing pathway; it's a coaching, administration, all pathway, all encompassing for women's, not just players, but also administrators, referees. And I think that starts from your community. We have to have comps for girls whether they're sevens, non-contact into 15s. We have to have it at a community level, having a girls competition where we can develop them from a young age, start them young. I look at AFLW here. They've got clubs down here that have got 2-3 under 15s girls teams. Like, that's amazing. You've got 20 players, 60 odd players playing for one club in girls. So you have to have that community level, and then you have to build your pathways, and you have to have your sort of high performance, your schoolgirls, your academies, where you've got players going into that, so that you've got the numbers coming through to then go into your high performance up that tree. So I think it's the three levels: the national team having a really strong community with good foundations, with the coaches and referees coming through together. So it's a journey for everyone into your high performance or academies. schoolgirls, so that they're constantly in the system rather than we play, we lose them, they come when they're 18 and they're starting from scratch. So I think it's having the whole pathway and being clear with it and not following what the men do. We might have to be different to how we do it to the men, because I think that's the key. I think is sometimes we just take the men and just go, we're going to copy and paste. It doesn't work always like that, particularly with our women. You've got mothers, you've got, they've got kids, they've got, they're working, they've got cooking, not cooking dinners, but they're the homemaker at times. So you've got to be able to be adjustable and flexible. And until we can get them to that high level and it's consistently, whether it's professional and they're getting remunerated and it becomes a full-time role, then you've got to be flexible with it, because you can't expect them to commit to 6-hour days of training if they're not getting rewarded. They've got to earn a living, they've got to study, they've got to do whatever it is. So I think it's having those 3 levels and having it clearly defined and working for the women and allowing for growth and flexibility.
Great answer.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very good. But I've got one more. And
I've got one more too.
No, you're not allowed anymore. My one is, and it could be a short answer, I would have thought. Give us 2 players from Fiji to watch out for at the World Cup.
Oh, it has to be the one for me is our captain Sarima. She is a workhorse. She number 8, been the captain for the last couple of years. I watched her playing sevens in the Super 7 series in Nandi on the weekend, and she's running 60-70 meters to score tries. I think she's probably the key player for me at the moment that I think is going to have a major impact for us at the World Cup. Just a leader, quite achiever, but just so across that line. Whew, I'm glad she's on our team, and I'm not trying to tackle her.
Awesome.
Good luck, Sunta. Who's going to win Super W and who's going to win the World Cup?
Super W, I would like to say that Melbourne Rebels are definitely building. We've got a pretty good squad and a pretty keen group of players. And it's always good to knock off New South Wales and Queensland, that rivalry. And then World Cup, geez, it's going to be close. You can't go past New Zealand, home soil, major. The first time it's been the World Cup being in the Southern Hemisphere. It's Eden Park, Auckland. Many teams have gone and tried to win there, so I think they're going to be very hard to beat at home.
Awesome. Alana, you speak so clearly, so well, utterly engaging. I mean, Burf takes the mickey that I can speak to people like you all day long, and why not when you're quite so engaging. But perhaps we'll revisit around the World Cup and what have you. But thank you so much this morning for giving us an incredibly in-depth look at Australian rugby and also Fijian rugby. It's been a real pleasure.
No, thank you very much. And as I said, I'd love to talk for hours. So always happy for a chat, Johnny, if you're awake in the middle of the night and want to chat.
Absolutely.
Careful.
I can only apologise about Burf's lack of Australian accent.
You're setting yourself up there, Alana. He's going to be calling at all hours. Just want to chat to you about scrums.
I would as well.
He would.
Yeah, I would.
Block and delete quickly, Alana. No, but genuinely, thank you so much for coming on. It was really, really good to hear from the other side of the world what's going on, and to continue to see, more females in high performance coaching roles, and to share those stories as well.
Good luck with it all, and we may well see you down in New Zealand.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Take care.
What an utterly engaging character, Burf. Obviously, heard the name, but what a fantastic communicator, and really, really clear with her knowledge, clear with her understanding of the game. I'm really incredibly impressed.
Yeah, I think we're delighted to have her on and have her speak about, not only what's going on in Australia, but also, the opportunity that she's got with Fiji. And, you can tell that she's a good coach through how she communicates, how she sees the game. And a couple of those points, she said about what's important to her on her coaching journey, which is getting to know their players and understanding them, just caring for your players as an individual and what their needs are. We're definitely seeing more and more of that within coaching roles, and that, really cool to hear from her. And we wish her really well at the World Cup, but also with Melbourne Rebels doing really good things down there. And pretty exciting to see how the Super W goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Real treat to have her on, and hopefully, the listeners enjoyed hearing a little bit about Australian and Fijian rugby, which we don't often do. But yeah, it's a golden year for women's rugby, and the WRP will continue to circumnavigate the globe with rugby stories.
I'm Shani Williams, and you're listening to the Women's Rugby Pod.
Let's bring you up to date with all the rest of the international news. There were some sevens, Burf. You love a bit of sevens. Your household loves a bit of sevens. But it was lovely to see some sevens out in the park.
Yeah, Madrid Sevens kicked off at the weekend. I don't know if you got to watch any of it, but it was so good just to have a bit of sevens back on. And top teams involved: France, Russia, USA, Spain, Kenya and Poland.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's great to see them out there playing.
The motherland.
And they had some surprising results over the weekend as well.
Did they? What?
They beat Spain. Considering Spain beat Russia, who then went on to win it. So yeah, just pretty exciting weekend to see teams finally get out there running around, getting the opportunity to play. It's obviously backed up again this weekend, so they'll be back out, another opportunity to play at the weekend again. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just another step, isn't it, to returning to some rugby. So yeah, Russia won the Madrid Sevens last weekend. And Spain took one step closer to the European World Cup qualifiers by comfortably beating a spirited Russian side. This is 15s we're talking about now. 56-7. Second row, Anna Puig came away with a hat-trick. That victory put Spain in the driving seat. Top of the table of the European Championship 2020 this is. We're still playing that championship out by a single point clear of Russia. Now all they need is 2 match points in their game against Netherlands on Saturday. On to domestic news. Allianz Premier 15s. We will apologise again. We for some reason missed the DMP Sale game last weekend. Huge apologies for that. Certainly not intentional. Sale won at the weekend up at Durham University 47-0. And your guys came through a really close one. 20 points to 19. Langi Tuima with a late penalty. Jared Mullen said after the game, found a way to win.
Yeah, it was a really important win for the squad, and they, prepped really well throughout the week. And look, we've been talking about how the league is just so much tougher now, and every game and every opportunity that you create on the pitch, you've got to take. And we fell short of that the last few weeks, but it was great to see. There was one last opportunity at the end there, and took the right option to go for points. And great to see Langi Tuima, nudge that over. And as Gerard said, sometimes you just got to find a way, and you've got to grind it out, and that's exactly what they do. And again, it's a great game and a great position to move forward with, to be like, right, we've been in the fight like that, we've been really tight, we've come on the wrong side of it, but we also can come on the right side of it as well. So yeah, really good win, and an important win for the top four.
Yeah, absolutely. So that top four as it stands is Sarries still lead their way on 50 points. Queen's back up to second on 46, 43. Loughborough Lightning, and then Wasps on 40. So, wow. Last year, I was looking forward to those semis. This year, you just can't call it. Anyway, on to this weekend's fixtures. As ever, we would like to get a little predictions from you, Burf. Exeter DMP.
Exeter.
Good. Wasps Saracens. What a game that is.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty exciting game. And I think also, when you lose a tight game the week before, leading into the next one, you learn and you progress for that week to tighten up those small little margins. So, and I think this game will be about that. It'll be about small margins, where you're playing in the areas of the field, playing in the right parts. It's a tough one. I think Saracens are getting back to fully loaded, and they've been performing the last couple of weeks after they had a bit of a run against Exeter. So I'm going to say Saracens for this one.
Ooh, yeah, I think I'm with you. I think they just, and for me, it's also a mental thing. I've seen those games the last couple of seasons. It's just a mental edge. But look, Wasps are a very, very good side. We will see. Loughborough Lightning against Worcester.
I don't think even though we saw an improvement from Worcester, what was it, 2 weeks ago in playing against Exeter, tight game, 10-17, I believe. I think Loughborough Lightning just have so much firepower, having experienced it 2 weeks ago. And I think Worcester are a little bit light with that in terms of the size and the strength of the packs. And Loughborough Lightning's pack is so mobile. It's almost like they've got 8 back rowers on the pitch. So yeah, I think Loughborough Lightning will take that one.
Yeah, missing Laura Keats, aren't they? Their leadership and her physicality. How about Gloucester Hartpury against Bristol? West Country Derby.
I'm going to say, this is a tough one. I don't know. See, they're both quality sides, but they're both very hit and miss.
I'm going Gloucester.
Okay, well, I'll go Bristol then.
I'm going Gloucester Hartpury. You go Bristol. All good. Sale versus Quins.
Harlequins.
I'm going Sale.
You're going Sale?
No. I think Harlequins will win that one, despite being without their totem pole, their talismanic leader.
I agree with you. Sale are, a tough side, and it won't be easy. That's for certain. We've experienced what they're like. They're relentless in their defence, and we're going to have to be absolutely spot on in order to take our opportunities. We've got the travel to contend with as well. It's a long trip up there. It'll probably be freezing cold, and they've got quality people. I mean, you can't look much further than the number 10 that they've got, who can orchestrate and pull the strings and make things very difficult. So I think we know it's a challenge, but on the back of the last 3 games that we've had a lot of lessons learned in those, and hopefully we're going to see again another improvement as we did against Wasps.
What about Spain, Netherlands?
Well, I think a side that plays with confidence, which is exactly where Spain will be right now, speaks a lot of volumes. And for them to go and put in display they did against Russia, I think just the fact that they've had a game as well just gives them that confidence to go into that game feeling quite comfortable and believing in themselves. They've got the ability to do it. But yeah, I think Netherlands will always turn up and put their best foot forward in order to try and progress. It's an exciting time, and I'm just so pleased that these games are happening, and they're getting the opportunity to play.
Hello, you lovely people. I'm Shauna Brown, and you're listening to Women's Rugby Pod.
Finally, to finish up, a couple of shout-outs. We asked the people to do us a little favour, and a few have. They've delivered. Got a bit of feedback, some reviews of the pod. This from Karen 10915. This podcast is awesome and great escapism during lockdown. Brilliant for the game and women and girls into the sport too. Thank you very much, Karen, for that.
Another shout out from PHG Sports. Thank you very much for this one. Can't wait for each and every new episode. Johnny and Rachel bring a wonderful update on everything within women's rugby.
Out to our man in Canada. And yeah, biggest fan 225. Thank you very much for this little review. Johnnie Burf's weekly insights into women's rugby news from the UK and around the world is brilliant. Live pod should not be missed. And Mel Robinson's interview in the last episode is worth listening to on its own. If for nothing else, then hearing how she made her dad proud on her debut for the Black Ferns. Oh, isn't that nice?
That's lovely.
And I mean, this is I mean, I don't know why we didn't go with this at the top of the show, Burf, but we're in the top 20 sports podcasts in South Africa this week.
Oh, amazing.
Hey.
Well, no surprise really, considering we've got Lynn on, got
Razzie, Zingay, yeah, absolutely hearing all about the South African news. But even bigger than that, let's top that. We're in the top 15 sports podcasts in the United Arab Emirates. That's it. Honestly, we may as well go now. Our work here is done. Our work here is done. Now, look, generally, people, thank you very much for those reviews. We don't often blow smoke in our own direction, but it's really, really nice to get comments like that, because Burf and I do this out of our own time and money for the love of the game. So yeah, thank you very much for those. Really appreciate it. As ever, please continue to share the pod. It is a magic year for women's rugby. We've got hugely exciting plans around the Women's Six Nations and the World Cup as well. Subscribe and rate at
Pod Women's Rugby on both Twitter and Instagram. Get in touch, send comments. Let us know what you're getting up to. Let us know what you're going to be doing when coming out of lockdown. Yeah, just give us a shout.
Indeedy so. And next week, we've started closer to home. In South Africa, Australia, New Zealand the last couple of weeks. Close to home in Wales next week, Burf.
Yeah, we're going to be speaking to Charlie Watham next week. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, she is the lady behind women's rugby in the Principality, an incredibly driven lady, and really we have spoken a long time about getting her on the pod, so really excited to have her on. Just remains for us to say a huge thank you to Alana Thomas for coming on. Really enjoyed chatting with her. Thank you everyone for listening. Enjoy your rugby at the weekend, enjoy the live stream, enjoy the Sevens, the European Championship, and get your foot up, Burf, and get some ice on that.
Until next time.